Well, Microsoft, you've finally done it. You've managed to piss me off royally. And if you stay tuned, I'm going to tell you why. So, howdy YouTube, Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. I'm going to prepare you right up front so you have time to make a decision. This is not going to be, well, hopefully it won't be a long video, but it is going to be a ranty video. And I'm going to talk to you about a decision I've made concerning Microsoft products moving forward with Unky Joe's Playhouse and my business. So, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, carry on. If not, click away now and go find something else to do. So a desktop is a very personal thing. You get a desktop configured the way you like it. You know, let's face it, Windows is a tool, or any operating system is a tool. And, you know, when I buy a screwdriver, whether it be a straight blade or a Phillips, the person I buy the screwdriver from doesn't come by 3 months later and say, look, I have a better tip for that screwdriver, so put this tip on, without asking my permission. I know it's probably a bad analogy, but what I'm saying is my operating system should not be updating itself without my permission, and the operating system should not be making horribly drastic changes to the interface without letting me know ahead of time. But it seems that since Microsoft has decided to take Windows to a subscription-based service, that they've become more Adobe-like than I care to deal with. Adobe is notorious for doing this. Every time there's an update that comes out, it breaks something or changes the way your workflow. And while people, especially me, used to be eager to upgrade to the latest and greatest operating system, as I've gotten older, I just need my operating system to work and get the hell out of the way and let me do what I need to do. Every time I update Adobe Premiere, it changes something and it changes my workflow. It interrupts my day. Now, of course, you have a choice with Adobe to update or not. With Microsoft, not so much. If you don't pay attention and if you're working hard and you don't know the application update is coming, and it installs overnight, unless you uninstall it, you're pretty much stuck where you are. And then Microsoft does other things with Windows now. They add games, they add Bubble Hunt, Bubble Witch Saga, they add all kinds of stuff in the background, apps that I don't desire nor need. They install them without my permission or knowledge. Now, some people will say, Joe, you need to read the EULA and know what the hell is going on. And yeah, you're right. I do. I should pay more attention. But I'm busy working and producing and making content. I just want my operating system to work. I want to install it. I want to load my drivers, security updates, those kind of things. Yeah, I want those. I want to protect them. But I don't want you changing fundamentally how my operating system works. It's annoying, and it's not needed. It is totally not needed. So, like I was saying, each update adds additional programs I don't need, nor do I desire. I'm paying for this operating system. I should have some sort of say-so in the kind of applications that get installed, but they don't ask. The Windows 10 interface is somewhat configurable, but it's not really as... if you compare it to a Mac, the Mac desktop is very configurable, very customizable. So a lot of people like Mac. But Mac is, the OS 10 is starting to do the same thing Windows is, and that is they just update for the sake of updating to have the latest, greatest version. You know, Windows 7 I loved because they just left it alone. There weren't, give me an example. I went in the other day to adjust the audio properties on Windows 10 1803 and found that they had completely changed the way the buttons work on the speaker button down in your taskbar. It doesn't bring up the interface it used to. And I finally figured out I had to go to Control Panel, but they hide Control Panel. I had to actually search for it on the Windows 10 menu system. The Windows 10 menu system is a laugh riot. All these tiles, It's stupidity. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. My clients are getting sick of it too. They're like, for crying out loud, I just want to get in and get my work done. So the interface is really, they say it's configurable, but not really, not like Windows 7 was. Windows 7 had add-ons, you could do multiple desktops, that kind of thing. Windows 10 really doesn't have that feature, not that I could find. They, like I said, they keep hiding your old ways of controlling your desktop or your peripherals and hiding the old ways to do it. I don't like that either. They're reporting and tracking your activity to try and sell you things. I'm not really worried about tracking my activity, but I would prefer you ask my permission. And not just a little blurb that's 20 pages long that is a legal document that no. How about putting it in plain English and letting people know, hey, if you sign up for this, we're going to do this. They don't do that. And again, I'm a one-man band here, and I have to support this with my clients. So if I don't know what's going on, and a client gets updated with an update they don't want, I'm ultimately responsible for that. I really don't have a need for Office anymore. In fact, I find myself using Notepad++ more than I do Microsoft Word, and Excel and PowerPoint. I really don't use those apps. There are online versions of those apps. There's LibreOffice is an open source. I don't do a lot of advanced editing or formularies under Excel. So for me, it's not a big deal. The big app that I use under Office is Outlook, and now with my Exchange 2016 server, Outlook is now web-based, and most applications are moving to a web-based type of application of distribution. So I really don't have a need for Office, and there are very few apps under Windows that I must have. I thought I couldn't live without Adobe Premiere Pro, but I have found since then that I can. So there's nothing really keeping me on Windows. And if I were to switch to a different operating system, I can run Windows in a virtual machine. So to support my clients and stuff like that, I wouldn't be doing video editing in a virtual machine, a virtual Windows 10 machine, but I can still run Windows 10 in a virtual machine on any new operating system I put on my computer. So, what are my options? Well, I could switch to a Mac. I've got a Mac Mini on the desk behind me. I'm very fond of OS 10. I like it. It works really well. I don't like Apple, and I don't like Apple products, even though I use them. Especially the newer products. I don't know what direction Apple thinks they're taking, but I digress. I could convert my Windows PC into a Hackintosh, but I'd be violating a DMCA, and putting an operating system that I can't buy and don't own onto a PC, which is not allowed by their license agreement. And Hackintoshes are, once you get them set up and get them stable, they're okay, but they're quite a beast to get up and running. Or I could switch to Linux or Unix or BOS. And so what are the pros and cons of both of those? Well, like I said, OS 10, I don't own it. The Mac Mini I have back here really is not powerful enough for video editing. It could get done, but I like having a PC. I like making my own custom PCs and picking the parts that go in the memory and the video card and that kind of thing. And you can't really do that with a Hackintosh. You're kind of stuck with whatever the Hackintosh, the people that make the kernel for the Hackintosh support. Linux is open source. It's free. It's got a lot of great software that is out there that is comparable to any piece of Windows software. A lot of manufacturers now are making triple threat programs. In other words, they'll run on Windows, Mac, or Linux. Linux is very mature. It's been around a long time. And but there's some cons to Linux as well. It's a learning curve, but the thing I like best about Linux is it installs and really kind of gets out of the way. So there you go, pros and cons to both. So my decision is I have decided to switch to Linux, and it's going to be a multi-phase kind of thing. I'm evaluating lots of different versions of Linux in VirtualBox. But I need to decide which version I want to switch to permanently to replace my Windows 10 desktop. And I don't do this lightly. I am the king of hating switching operating systems. And I've used Linux for years. I've never used Linux on the desktop because I found it was clunky, too hard to get working. It wasn't as stable as Windows. There were some apps that I just couldn't live without in Windows, and now I've grown up and matured and found I can live without those apps. But then you've got so many different versions and flavors of Linux. So which one? Which one do you want to switch to? And then which desktop interface? Do you want to use KDE, GNOME, XCFE? I mean, there's a multitude of different desktops on there. And then there's the people in the Linux world. No offense, but the Linux crowd is a very unforgiving crowd when it comes to being a neophyte in Linux. In fact, if you go out and ask for help on a lot of the Linux forums, they're like, well, you should know this. They're very judgmental, judgy, preachy kind of people. But that's changed in the last 5 to 10 years. And I find that there's a lot more people that are a lot more receptive to helping you with problems on Linux. And frankly, the distributions have gotten much easier to use than prior versions of Linux. Linux is stable. Hell, my Synology NAS runs on Linux, and I love it. It's one of the most stable pieces of equipment I have. What is the package? LAMP. The LAMP. Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP run most of the websites on the internet. So Linux is stable. It's safe to use. It's not prone to virus infections and malware like Windows is. And best of all, they don't install stuff without your permission. It's fully customizable, including the desktop. So in addition to being fully customizable, Linux will work with all my peripherals. It'll work with my printers. It'll work with my webcam. It'll work with my new microphone. It'll work with my video card. It'll work with my AMD processor and motherboard. It'll work with USB 3 peripherals. It'll work with everything. What I'm tired of is these software manufacturers going to these subscription-based software. My clients are tired of it. Well, they're looking for alternatives. Joe, what alternatives do we have to Adobe? Joe, what alternatives do we have to Windows? Joe, what's a learning curve going from Windows to an open source operating system? Now, they want to keep Windows servers because they work well. That wasn't until Synology came out. And now I've got clients looking at Synology for running their networking as well. Why not, right? You pay one fee, you move on, and everything is there that you need. So I'm going to be starting a new series of videos beginning next week. And it's going to be my Linux, switching to Linux series of videos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a setup of several different versions of Linux with several different front-end graphical user interfaces, and I'm going to be doing all that on VirtualBox on my Windows 10 PC to show you how easy it is to install and configure Linux, and then showing you some of the differences between the types of interfaces, whether it be GNOME, KDE, XCFE, there's Cinnamon, Peppermint. There's quite a few different flavors of Linux out there, as I call them. And then we're going to talk about the pros and cons, like the networking setup. Because keep in mind, I'm on a domain network here, running a Microsoft Windows domain network. So how do you set up Linux to work in an environment like that? How do you access your shares? How do you mount drives, that kind of thing? So we'll be going over the basic install and configuration and getting it set up for your network. And then the beauty of this is you're going to learn Linux as I learn Linux, okay? Look, I know quite a bit about Linux under the hood. I can get around on the command line. But if there's a GUI, I always prefer a GUI. But I think it's going to be fun because you're going to get to come along with me. And then maybe you'll want to switch to Linux. So I'm device and I'm operating system agnostic. I work with whatever I can that gets my work done. I don't give a rat's ass about Microsoft. I don't give a rat's ass about Apple or supporting their environment, but if their software and their hardware work and I can use it to my benefit, I'm going to use it. Price really isn't the issue, because in a business you're going to pay for something. So, but with Linux, it's open source, it's free, and all you ever pay for with Linux is support. So as long as there's support out there, I'll be happy with Linux. Now here's the problem with learning any new operating system, or any new program for that matter, and that is the learning curve. So if you're running a business or you're working on a daily machine, don't put it on your daily machine. Set up a virtual machine like I'm going to show you how to do, so you can get around, play with it, get your feet wet, figure out how to overcome problems in Linux before you install it on your production machine, because you don't want to be in the middle of production and suddenly you can't import a video file because you don't have some obscure codec installed. So this is why we're going to do these series of Linux videos on VirtualBox. Now I'm using VirtualBox to do my virtualization, even though I'm on Windows 10 Enterprise, which has Hyper-V built into it. I just find it's easier to use VirtualBox. It has more bells and whistles than the Windows 10 Hyper-V does. And frankly, Windows 10 Hyper-V is not designed to be running a Linux desktop operating system. It's mainly for running Linux servers, that kind of thing, something without a GUI on it. And VirtualBox is just a little more forgiving when it comes to running Linux in a virtual machine, and you have better control over the peripherals. So that's what we're going to use moving forward. And the beauty of running Linux is you can also run VirtualBox under Linux. In fact, it comes pre-installed with a lot of Linux distributions. So if I need a Windows machine or run a Windows program to do some testing, I'll have that ability. So there's no downfalls, but it is going to be a several month long process to get completely over to Linux. OBS will run under Linux. They have a Linux version of OBS Studio, which is what I use to do my videos, and it'll allow me to use KDEN Live, which is a Linux-based video editor. Don't attempt to run it on Windows. It is an abysmal failure. It's buggy. It doesn't work well. It's not very smooth. I have used it a bit on a machine. The machine behind me I've installed Linux on, and I've been able to get into KDEN Live and actually use it and be functional in it without any instruction. So that's another reason I'm moving. As you know, my subscription with Adobe runs out in October, so I'm preparing now to get ready to move over to Linux and KDEN Live. And hopefully the more people that move over to Linux, the more support there will be for KDEN Live. So video editing, I don't think is going to be a problem on Linux. I know a lot of people that are doing it. So there you go, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to embark on a voyage of discovery with Linux, a whole new series of videos for y'all to watch. I do hope you found this video entertaining and informative, if nothing else. I'm looking forward to sharing this voyage of discovery with you. So smash that like button, please. Leave your comments in the comments section, and please make sure you subscribe to my channel and you click the notification bell. Nobody knows what YouTube is doing right now, but I have had several people tell me they haven't been notified of updated videos. So I told them, make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell. And as we learn new stuff about how YouTube is recommending videos, I'll educate you when I get educated. So there you go. Thanks again for watching. Thanks so much. Do donate if you're so inclined. We take PayPal and Patreon. And or watch the videos, the ads on my videos. I get a little bit of money that way too, and it helps keep this channel going. So thanks again for watching, and please don't forget, we will see you on the other side.